What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 103 of ValueTown. I'm ChanManV, and I still messed something up. I can't believe this. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I was just like telling these guys, like, I'm gonna double check something, and of course the cam's like switch on me and beautiful. But want to welcome Zalae to the show and Sottle for the first time. What's up, guys?
Yeah, you guys can work out which is which on your own, I guess.
Yes.
The overlay is not helping you out too much.
I look really good today. That's what I'm thinking.
Exactly.
Dang.
All right, guys. All right. Oh man, but Sottle, first time on here, man. I'm really excited to finally get a chance to discuss some cards and decks and metagame with you. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. I watch a fair bit of the show, and I always wanted to come on, but it was like, I know they just get the superstars on. I'm not a big deal right now. And then you brought on TJ Sanders. And that was when I knew I could no longer sit by and not be on this show. So, here I am. What's up?
That's awesome. No, I can't wait to do it. Zalae, you're just saying you haven't got a chance to do much with Sottle, ever, right? Yeah.
No, we've kind of avoided each other somehow.
Yeah, I think the one time we could have cast together was at DreamHack Valencia when you came up and was like, hey, I want to cast a game, and I was like, well, I'm casting 2 in a row, so I'll step out and you can cast in my spot. So we even managed to dodge each other there. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to cast more stuff in the future, so maybe I can steal more of your jobs, or we can work together.
I guess you guys are mutually exclusive. I don't know. Well, we got a full show today, guys. Lots of stuff going on in the community. We're going to talk about some news, just a little tidbit with HCT Winter Championships, followed by tons of stuff from Ben Brode, as well as just generally the developers, even Developers Insight that's coming up later this week. Talk about our week in Hearthstone. This is where we talk about what we've been doing in Hearthstone, as well as the decks we've been playing. And then Mekkatroque's Workshop returns this week. We've got a few cards, and they're all actually from patrons and from viewers. So we got 3 cards there to talk about. And this is the segment where we talk about custom cards that we just come up with, give Blizzard some ideas. And then lastly, we've got 3 email questions that we're going to talk about. And if you're interested in, if you're listening to the show and want to email in your questions before the show, go ahead and email those to valuetown@chanman.tv. And we'll try to get them next week. Okay, so let's start off with some news. And there was an announcement about HCT Winter Championships, which is going to be happening in March, and they announced the locale of it. And instead of having it at, some kind of cold, dreary place in Europe, or maybe some, very, very foreign Asian place, over in China or something, they decided to have it at a very tropical place, which is the Bahamas. What do you guys think about that?
I got to go. Dang, I've been working towards that this past week.
That's right. Even more of a way to motivate people to go get qualified for the Winter Championship.
Hey, I don't need to qualify. I've just been checking my email twice as often every day, waiting to find out whether I'm casting HCT events next year.
Hire me, please.
I want to go. Come on.
Oh man, so that's really cool. I mean, I think I saw Savitz and tweet something he was just talking about jokingly or with some Blizzard folks earlier or maybe late this past year, and then it just became a reality. So I don't know, maybe the idea really did start somewhere around that time. But the Bahamas, I mean, I was just there actually this summer with the family, just visiting.
Oh, I'm jealous.
And
I've
doing
never
that.
been there. I think
really?
that's something I would really enjoy. I might have to make a vacation of it if I can manage to qualify for that thing.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool.
It's going to be 4 days at one of the resorts. Sounds pretty good for downtime or whenever you guys aren't working.
Well, I honestly, if I'm there, I'd be working the whole time. But I'd try and schedule some extra days at the end of it. Or
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. In March, I think it's pretty nice during March. I mean, there's no winter there, so. Definitely the beaches will be great. Water, look at that water. Water's freaking beautiful
so
and everything.
Beautiful.
Exactly. It's actually really close to where I mean, I'm like a 45-minute plane ride from there. But unfortunately, I'm going to be gone. Otherwise, I'd probably try to go. But I'm going to be at my father's 70th birthday party instead. So,
I mean, that's the other big deal about the announcement, right? Is that it's actually a live event open to the public that the crowd can come and watch, which is kind of new for the championship events, I guess, which were just kind of closed studio, just us and the players just sat in there broadcasting.
Yeah, but how many people are there going to be?
Pretty lame, to be honest.
In the Bahamas to watch Hearthstone? I don't know.
So, well, beautiful beaches, crystal clear water.
Dude, get some of the locals there. That'd be awesome, man.
Yeah.
They know nothing about Hearthstone, but they're coming and being exposed to it. That'd be pretty interesting. But no, anyways, it's cool. It's definitely a very different location for this championship, and hopefully we get some more exotic locations the rest of the year too. Should be exciting. More motivation for you players. But okay, well, anyways, that's in the news. That's a really short segment there. But let's just jump into some meaty topics, or the meaty topic, which is Ben Brode this week. He's been all over the place in the last week on Reddit, on obviously the forums, on Twitter, and we were asking for more communication, and we are getting it in big time, at least from Ben and even Ixar too. So let's talk about some of the things that he's been talking about recently. It started off with Ben responding to or talking about just the classic and basic set. Some of the things that maybe they're thinking about. Even asking us what we think. With a few options as to what to do with classic. And then it just basically started a very big discussion about it on Reddit. Still a lot of angry people, like even with Ben talking to us. Yeah.
Angry people on Reddit, huh?
Yeah.
Weird.
So it's like you can't please these people no matter what. So I figured it'd be good if we talked about, I think, what we'd like to see with Classic from a realistic standpoint, or maybe even just from a got super crazy wish list. So I'll start with you, Zalae. What would you like to see from the Classic and Basic set currently? Would you like to see cards changed, added? What do you want to see?
Like, I don't necessarily go as far as some people that want to see an actual core set, like a complete revamp. So some of the cards from the expansions just become part of a core set. Mm-hmm. I do think the classic set needs extensive rebalancing beyond the few nerfs and few rotations that they're doing. Because if that set of the cards for each class is going to become the basis of the game forever, you look at something like Warrior compared to Priest and the tools that they have available in their classic set, and it's just ridiculously one-sided. Priest cannot compete, and it's it's the reason why a card like Draconid Operative can get printed for Priest, and that's everyone just goes, oh yeah, that's a card that they needed, we're fine with that. Whereas a card that overpowered being printed for a class with a good base set, they'd just be completely broken. We see when Shaman gets given a good card, for example, as this is nuts. Why are they giving Shaman more tools? It's because Shaman has existing tools in the base set, and Priest just kind of doesn't. So yeah, I think it needs extensive rebalancing, but I also think it's a very dangerous precedent. Something that I do very much agree with Ben Brode on, or agree with the design team in general on, is that it becomes dangerous to create a core set of just really powerful cards that are going to get run all the time, because then the expansions are less exciting, because then the expansions do less to the game when they come out, and their goal is to print new exciting cards every time that people will play and then will shake up the metagame. But I think it asks too many questions of them to balance 9 classes as unbalanced as they are in the core set, without really, really going back to that and heavily reworking some of the.
Okay. So, what do you think?
I thought that was pretty well said. I liked what you said there, Zalae. I do want to see changes to the core set, because just as a general thing, I want to see change to Hearthstone. And I've been seeing the developers and Ben Brode talking about that in particular, that they're trying to make changes to keep things fresh. And so I'm happy to see that that's a priority for them, that they're working on it. And I feel like it's, this most recent expansion did a good job of that. And I'm looking forward to more of that. Keep changing things, keep keeping things interesting for me. I want new puzzles to solve as often as possible.
Yeah.
This was one of my favorite expansions and one of my least favorite expansions simultaneously, which is really, really bizarre, because it came out and it blew the game wide open. The first week, you queued up on ladder you did not play against a deck that you played the week before. It just didn't happen. There was none of that crap that was just like, hey, this card's broken. I'll put it in my existing broken deck, and then we'll go from there. It was
you could sort of a little bit.
Shaman still did that.
Shaman.
They put
you're right.
in 3 pirate cards.
What you said is like more true. You're right. I shouldn't nitpick.
It's fine. No, nitpick. I'm a very pedantic guy, so it's fine. I can sympathize. But at the same time, like I'm not really happy with where those decks have ended up when it's all like shaken out. I don't like the meta particularly right now. But I'm so happy that like the game, like just a grenade got thrown in the middle of the game and everything just exploded apart. And then it was up to like the best players in the world to then piece it back together again. That was brilliant. Like watching that whole process evolve was amazing. I just like wish it got put back together in a slightly different configuration, I guess.
Okay. I mean,
what do you dislike about?
We talked about this last week. Yeah, we talked about like a lot of people not happy with the meta. So kind of curious what you don't like about it.
Right now, I think there's like 4 kinds of matchups that happen. There is Nut Curve versus Nut Curve. There's Nut Curve versus do you draw your power card? Like primarily Reno decks. Like, did you get your Kazakus and your Reno? And then there's the 2 mirrors of those. There's Nut Curve. There's did you draw your power card versus did you draw your power? Like those configurations are the only kind of matchups that we have. And then there's just like unwinnable matchups sprinkled on top of that. Like previously, there was a lot of like 55% in the meta, like 50 to 55%. And as boring as that is kind of from a deck building perspective from tournaments, it's actually really, really nice to like queue up ladder all the time and know that actually it's your skill that's making the difference most of the time, which probably most people don't agree with. I know most people hate like 50-50 metas and believe the opposite. But when you're queuing up a deck and every deck in the game is like 45 to 55% against that deck, there is a window where you being a better player than your opponent can then win any matchup, right? But like right now, so many games seem to be decided by did you curve 1, 2, 3, 4 versus did you draw Kazakus and Reno, or the matchup is just unwinnable. It's like an 80% matchup to one side or the other. And I think like the ratio of decisions mattering in the game is kind of at a low point right now from my perspective. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with the meta at the moment.
I don't agree with you that much.
I don't.
For me personally, results wise, like before this expansion came out, I was right in the dumpster. Like the month before this, it counted for BlizzCon points or whatever, and I just hated the game so much I couldn't bring myself to try to finish top 100 Legend, which is a thing I had never experienced before.
Okay.
And now that we have Mean Streets of Gadgets in, I finished top 10 Legend, and like I won a couple open tournaments, and I'm like playing the game and enjoying myself. And I agree that there are games where, you know, somebody gets blown out, but like that's always been Hearthstone to me. Yeah. To me, it's like at least there's new and different, interesting things going on. And when we get to the deck segment, I'll talk about some of my kind of out there ideas that I think a lot of people disagree with, and maybe they're right, maybe my ideas are bad, but like I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah, I am a little bit I'm on the same bucket or the same side as Zalae on this one. I agree with what you're saying, and I think generally in the community they're divided. Either it's people hate, I guess, what they call the rock paper scissors type of meta, and you know, which is what it is now, or at least some people call it that, versus what it used to be, which was one deck that had 55% against a lot of matchups, but it required a lot of skill to be able to maintain that winning percentage. But overall, for me though, you're generalizing a lot of the decks, but each of those decks, if they are like in Curvestone or whatever deck, they do have nuances themselves. You know what I mean? Some are a little more aggro, some are a little more mid-range, you know, slower, like a Dragon Priest or something like that. So there are, you know, I think there's a little bit more depth to that. I don't know. I don't actually, again, like I'm not as upset with the metagame itself. So it's cool to actually hear thoughts from the opposite side for sure.
I want to say like Reno Mage in particular has been getting just a lot of hate. People, they're like, this deck's a high roll deck. You know, you draw your Kazakus and your Reno and you crush them, or you don't, and you suck. And they think Reno Lock is like a much more skill deck somehow because it has a consistent draw engine, which I'm just like, you know, Reno Lock taps like maximum twice in the first 6 turns, right? You play one Arcane Intellect and they're the exact same consistency in terms of draw. And a lot of times they're like one card off in terms of how many cards they've drawn in those turns of the game. So really, they're quite similar in terms of how high rolly they are or whatever. I guess one low skill factor is that Reno Mage can play Ice Block, and they don't have to figure out when to play Reno. It's pretty obvious. It's like, but I think people say like you can't play around Reno Mage or it's not interactive, and I just strongly disagree with those statements.
I would never say that either.
Okay.
To like crystallize the problem, it's like back when like cards like Deathspite and Dr. Boom were in the meta, those cards were so much more powerful than anything else in the game. The games became defined by like, did the warrior draw Deathspite on 4? Did the deck draw Dr. Boom on 7? So that's the problem that I have with like decks existing as the powerful control decks being Reno Mage and Reno Lock now are, where they have 1 or 2 cards that are just so much more powerful than the rest of the deck that it polarizes matchups towards, it obviously there's just card draw RNG in every game, but it accentuates that to a disruptive point, in my opinion.
Okay, I totally like what you're saying there, and I agree with it. I do wish that these interesting control Reno Kazakus decks were more consistent in terms of the power level in them, right? Like having Earthen Ring Farseer and Reno Jackson in the same deck is like interesting. One of these cards seems a little better. Right? It would be nice if Reno Jackson were less powerful and the weak cards were more powerful and the draws were more consistent in that regard. I agree, that would be cool. For me, I don't know. I'm kind of more annoyed by the whole patches thing. Like the whole patches and Buccaneer existing at the same time is just like, this is balanced.
Well, I mean,
we don't live until Reno on 6 that often anymore. Like all of a sudden, it's very real that you die before you get to 6 mana.
That's true, and I mean, I agree with you there too. I mean, the thing with patches and that type of thing is when you get something strong like that, like those 2 cards together, like Buccaneer and patches, it's just one of those things that people just add to every single deck. Like any aggro deck, let's just add these 3 cards, maybe 5 cards. It depends on what class you are. And that's like, I hate it when things are simplified like that. And I don't think even Blizzard likes it when that kind of thing happens, where it's not like a single class that's building a deck like this. So with Reno Mage, I think it's only strong because those patches decks are strong. Like Reno Mage, you can beat Reno Mage with other types of control decks, or even some sturdier mid-range decks.
That's what those 80-20 Saddle's talking about.
Yeah, you got
it. Everyone knows that feeling. You queue up Reno Mage, you see it during, you're like, should I concede now or should I play a few turns?
True. And so anyways, the point is, I think it has a lot to do with the meta and like Reno Mage feeling like that right now. But getting back to just Ben Brode and the classic and basic cards, I think that I think Saddle, you're right on the mark with just having them, wanting to change. I think change the classic, balance the classic and basic sets. I think definitely need to do that, and I think balancing it will require swapping some cards out. I think adding to it, not necessarily going full out like the core set, like you were saying, but I think it's important that any card in Wild is still fair game to be added back to the classic set just to balance things out. I don't think there's anything wrong with Shaman like by itself. I think Shaman being rich in tools, rich in abilities is a great thing standalone. It's the other classes like not being strong, you know what I mean? Like the other classes were just as strong, then I think we could potentially have a really cool game. But right now, it's just like it is totally unbalanced, and Shaman's paying the price. It's going to suck for them to have to remove stuff from a very rich class, and I'd hate to see that design-wise, but it might be necessary. Another thing too is that it's really sensitive to change the classic and basic cards coming onto a reset too, where we have like the least number of cards like in the game, because right now we have the most number of cards, right? Whenever we reset and take away all those expansion cards, we're gonna have the least number of cards, and the meta game could be crap. I mean, it's very, very tenuous at that moment, and I think if you are to change the classic and basic, I was talking to RDU about this, and he was making some good points that if you do change it, it might not be best to change those cards in the beginning, like whenever you have those resets. Maybe you change it later. So you kind of have like maybe 2 phases of changes during a year versus like one big one. I think that's something they could consider too. You don't have to just change it in March. You know what I mean? It's like they're giving themselves this artificial date, you know, that you don't have to do that.
I like what you're saying there. I want them to change it as often as possible. You know, just change a card every month.
They're not going to change it every month, though. Like I think we're pretty clear that. I mean, I don't know. I'd be shocked.
Their mind.
I'd be shocked if they ever went to every month. But,
I mean, there's kind of a problem with Hearthstone. You know, people complain about the game feeling stale, the meta feeling stale all the time, and it's because we've never really had a card game that. This is the first like truly massively globally successful card game of like the internet age, right? So as soon as something is released, be it a set, an expansion, a wave of nerfs or anything, it only takes a few people to work that out, and then they share that information because they want the visibility and the recognition of being the guy that shared this information, and then everyone knows it, and then the meta is solved. So there's kind of a couple of ways to combat that. Like one, like Zalae said, is just shake everything up every month. So we're constantly just tearing our hair out, trying to work the game out. And the second one is just like print cards with like cooler, more complex effects so that like Kazakis.
People get angry about that one. It's a little bit too powerful. I mean,
in theory, but yeah, in theory, yes, because you know when you print a card that's just like stats. Right, everyone knows whether or not that card is going to be good, and it's easy to work out how you're going to use it. When you introduce the Jade Golem mechanic, like, how soon did the optimal build of Jade Druid that hasn't changed since then get built? It was like day 2.
It's like search for Jade and add the cards.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
like,
what it was.
Play Bran, play some Ancient of Wars. Like day 1, people were still playing Arcane Giants. Day 2, everyone figured it out. That was basically it. Then it was done.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at like Patron Warrior, for example, even right towards the end of the game, when Warsong Commander got nerfed, people were still playing different builds of Patron Warrior. Like, people were playing Shield Block Shield Slam, Sixo was playing Dread Corsair still, and no one else really was. Because that deck was so complex and the mechanics involved with it were robust and complex in themselves, the optimal build of it doesn't get figured out so quickly, and then it stops everything becoming so stale. So yeah, the staleness of the meta is definitely something that they need to look at in the long term, and there's a few solutions to it, but I think it's something that they need to look at for sure.
Do you guys actually think that, like you mentioned the Jade Druid deck being figured out in day 2, how much of that is actually people not wanting to try to innovate that deck and versus literally it being figured out? Because a lot of times
I've tried innovating with it.
Yeah, I mean, the Druid's probably not a good example, but maybe some of the other decks that, you know, you can still maybe flop some cards around. You know, because there are definitely deck builders in our community, and there are definitely people who are just great at playing decks, right? Executors, like I kind of call them. And folks want to win tournaments right away. You know, they want to win events like right away, and they don't want to experiment with stuff. And I think a lot of times that ends up slowing down some of the just meta evolution. And it's hard to say when we are completely finished with developing a meta versus it's just in one of these lulls where people are just trying to, you know, just win whatever tournament and just go with it now instead of trying to try different things and possibly, you know, not having great results during that time. You see that with every game, right? But I think in Hearthstone, it's just harder to tell when that moment is.
I think there's a strong creative impulse in a lot of people. And while we don't always hit every opportunity to improve, there's a lot of people always looking for some way to change something and get credit for it, you know?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't sound quite that selfish. Like it's really it's a strong creative impulse. You want to try something new and have it be good. You want to figure it out. You want to be the guy who comes up with the new thing that's good. A lot of people are doing that. Druid's boring.
Druid is boring. Well, outside of there's some.
Well, Jade Druid's boring. I guess the
Aviana
stuff's cool. Sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, so one thing that Ben did talk about, or he did confirm, I think yesterday or the day before, is that Reno will not be added to the classic set. So that's been confirmed.
Feels bad. I love Reno, but I mean, if they're coming up with more Kazakhstan stuff, I'm cool with it.
So the reason why I like this so much is that I think it probably forces them to make viable control strategies that aren't Reno.
That aren't Reno, sure.
Because right now there really aren't that many. There's like a little bit of Control Warrior. Control Warrior is fine right now. There's a deck I'll talk about in a bit, which I think is pretty good. But right now, like the best control strategies are just Reno decks. And again, for the reasons I've discussed, I don't really like that. But we saw with this expansion, all the best tools that got printed were tools specifically for Reno decks. Like they just said on the card, this is for a Reno deck. And with Reno rotating out, I'd like to see less of that coming and more trying to fix the issue of rewarding control decks for making it past turn 7, turn 8 with like actual powerful late game cards that can win games. Like that would be nice.
Can I just say how nice it'll be to not call a deck a Reno deck and we can call it a Kazakus deck? We can just, I mean, it really should be called a Kazakus deck at this point because it's so
Reno's
powerful.
better because it's less syllables, right?
Yeah.
I guess. Or we can call it a Raza deck or whatever. But
I was wondering whether we go back to calling them like Highlander decks, like we did for, like,
it should be Highlander decks. That's exactly
a week at the start of the thing, and then like Lorinda, like another caster from the UK, if you guys don't know him, like freaked out at me and said you can't do that because it's some terrible format in Magic the Gathering that no one's ever played. And
is that right?
Yes.
Don't agree. No. Rule number 1, Zalae, never agree with Lorinda on anything.
Well, I'm sorry, but he's right.
I didn't realize it was terrible. I didn't realize it was a terrible format.
That is my objection to Highlander. I'd much rather call it just Kazakus. That's like a thing people know what that is. It's in the deck.
Okay.
That backfired enormously.
I'm so sorry.
So is it even possible to make a we'll call it a Kazakus deck for now. Is it possible to make a Kazakus deck that doesn't have like a very powerful heal mechanic inside of it?
No, you're gonna die in the current metagame.
You are, right?
But everything changes, right? Like who knows? Like maybe they lose stuff too, and things are okay. But yeah, Buccaneer's gonna kill you real good if you don't have something.
Warrior doesn't lose jack, dude. Right? Warrior's still gonna fuck you up if they have that super aggro thing. But Shaman will change. Shaman will change quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I'm very, very curious to see how Shaman ends up after the reset, because I think that'll be the biggest flux from that. That class will have the biggest flux. I'm curious. I'm wondering if they're going to come out with more cards, or they're just going to come out with cards that just come out with cards that require the singleton thing, or are they going to just come out with more cards that are good at supporting that type of that power right now that they have. Because if they just keep coming out with these singleton decks, then it's just simple to build these decks, right? You just literally just
no, it's not. It's really hard to build these decks. That's part of what I like about these Kazakus decks. It's really hard to build them. It's really hard to play with them. It's really hard to play against them. There's just so much.
Oh no, I didn't mean it by that. I just meant like if it says that this is essentially a singleton requirement, then people would just add them, and just as the base to these decks, and then build around it. I don't know. I kind of hope they build more. I don't know if they need any more of those cards or any more Kazakus-like cards, because Kazakus is already crazy powerful, and so is Raza too. Unless we're going to go with like every class has one of these kind of cards, it would be kind of nice if I don't know, if Priest had something extra special. Even Mage, right, has that Solia or whatever. But we'll have to see. I was just talking to Saddle about it'd be nice to see Healbot even just back. Something that's not crazy strong, but it's nice tool that's very consistent, and we know it's gonna always be there and heal for us. So if we do want to build towards that, double up on that, then we can to help counter aggro. But if we don't have that, man, it's gonna be a rough life, dude. Give me the big taunts.
We'll get something. They're not. They make some interesting design decisions, but I'm sure there's going to be some kind of defensive thing when Reno goes away.
Yeah, I hope so. I definitely hope so. Lastly, it's Developer Insight. That's going to be live, a Q&A on Friday, I believe, right? The 13th here? I believe it's the 13th. Let me see what time it is, just to confirm. But it's going to be Ben and Ixar hopping on a live stream and basically taking questions from Twitter and from the forums, I believe, which they may have taken prior to the actual live stream, or maybe even in real time. Well, I'm not sure exactly how they're gonna curate that, but that's great. I mean, I think we've been asking for something like that for a long time now. What do you guys think of it?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I hope that they don't if they are pre-screening the questions, I hope they don't pre-screen them too vigorously and just throw softballs at themselves all the time. Definitely some like real questions that need answering, but at the same time, 99% of the chaff that's thrown at them from like Reddit and Twitter or whatever isn't worth dealing with. So I could definitely understand the need for pre-screening, and as opposed to just a torrent of absolute just tripe coming at them from idiots all the time. But like mainly just enthusiastic that it's happening, hope that it happens again and again and again, and they just keep up a level of communication, because there's nothing that like fosters bad feeling in a community than just feeling like you're ignored. Even if developers are saying things to you and you don't agree with what they're saying, that is better than them just saying nothing and sticking their fingers in their ears. So.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. All that.
I mean, I think just having these things even just once a month, I think a lot of people would be satisfied, much happier with the team if that were to happen. Of course, you're not going to always get the answers you love, but it's very clear that Ben obviously is the director now, and I feel like this is the first thing in his reign as director. We're seeing a significant change, which is communication. That's awesome. Definitely great to see. Okay, well, let's move on to our next segment, our week in Hearthstone. So this is where we talk about what we've been doing in Hearthstone. What have you guys been doing? Have you guys been laddering, playing Arena, playing Tavern Brawl, anything like that?
I've been playing tournaments. I've been winning. It's awesome.
Exactly. He's been winning open tournaments. How many open tournaments were there last week? I feel like there were like 2 or 3 of them or something like that.
Well, there's like 2 a day usually.
2 a day. It's crazy. Yeah. Good stuff.
I was playing close to that many.
How many points you get for that?
You get, first place is 5 points, and you get, 1 result per month. You get your best result per month counts.
Nice.
So you can get up to 5 points.
Wow, that's good.
So it's like 5, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1 is the
You
point
got-
distribution to top 8.
You got top 10 in December as well, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
And I didn't have any points really before that, so it was a good thing that I did. I was not going to be going to the Bahamas if I didn't step my game up.
How about you, Zalae? What you been up to?
I have actually played Tavern Brawl this week for the first time in God knows how long. I don't play Tavern Brawl ever. I generally just find them mind-numbingly boring. But this one had a card back, so hey, guess we're playing that because card backs are sweet.
You're talking about the Diablo one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Apart from that, I've been laddering, but I mean, generally, since I switched from player to caster pretty much full time, my week in Hearthstone in general involves studying and watching and asking questions and talking to players a lot more than it actually involves playing the game. So yeah, pretty much just more of that, just soaking in information so I can hopefully
Honestly,
spew out useful things.
I think that's a pretty good routine if you're a player as well.
Sure.
Yeah. Gotta do some R&D, right? Like, you can't just be playing all the time. So no, that's great, man. That's definitely good. Yeah, casters definitely spend, I'm sure, a ton of time having to just gather up information. So I totally see that. Well, for me, I've just been just laddering when I can and trying to play and the same old, trying to play all kinds of different decks. And why don't we kind of go into that part here, talk about the decks that we've been playing. And I can start off with just it's not really control. It's more of actually a fatigue, a warrior that I've just been playing and having a lot of success actually in the last 2 days, I'd have to say, because this deck just wrecks Shaman. It wrecks Shaman. Yeah. It wrecks the mirror matchup.
God bless.
And for a while, your standard version of this, which didn't have 2 Gorehowl, so this actually has 2 Gorehowl, it would just lose to Reno Lock every single time because they just ooze my Gorehowl and it'd be done. But I have to say, now that I have 2 Gorehowls in this thing, I actually always I always have them in Jiraxxus range, once they go to Jiraxxus, or even just bring them down into that real uncomfortable range that I can do 19 with Taskmaster and Grom if I have Gorehowl, my second Gorehowl equipped. It's been great against Reno Lock. So,
yeah, I really like that double Gorehowl innovation. Who came up with that? Do you guys know?
I remember hearing about it, but I don't remember who came up with it.
I want to say VLPS, but I'm not sure if he's the one
who
first came up with it. But it really makes a lot of sense, right? Because when I saw a Gorehowl in this controller, my first instinct was that seems bad because it's terrible against aggro to have a Gorehowl in your deck. And every control deck's playing one acidic swamp ooze. So why the heck are we playing one Gore Howl to just give them the perfect answer every
Right.
time?
Exactly.
But then I see the 2 Gore Howl idea, and I'm like, well, that's genius because of exactly what ChanManV was talking about. Now they ooze my first Gore Howl, and I have the second one so that they can't play Jiraxis safely. And if they can't play Jiraxis safely, what are they doing?
Yeah.
They're dying in fatigue.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, and
I think it's just essential, right? Because for a while, Jiraxis wasn't being played in Reno Lock. They cut it out because there was just weird opinions going around of it being bad in every matchup. Apart
I thought
from
it was bad, but then like Reno Mage popped up and Controller popped up, and now it's like, yeah, Jiraxis, let's go.
Okay, sure. Exactly, right.
So yeah, as soon as Jiraxis is out, like the only way you're beating that is Control Warrior is just hold a Gore Howl forever and just threaten to 15 them at some point. And to do that successfully against Acidic Swamp Ooze meta, you need 2 of them. So yeah, it makes sense.
And what's cool too is like when you do have the Gore Howl, you can still swing 4 times down to 3 as long as you have the task. So the Taskmaster is super important is what I've learned, because I've played around with taking it out and not taking it out, and it definitely screws with your range. And then when I first started playing with it too, I was like doing it to Alley Armorsmith and getting that 4 armor, and then just like, what the hell am I doing? Like I'm totally wasting like a potential end game scenario. So I basically just hold it the entire time now, and it's been really, really good. So this is a deck that I think wins more than 50% pretty consistently, just because it literally beats Shaman at a huge rate. Revenge wrecks.
Let me tell you, I play a lot of aggro Shaman and I hate it. Like it's I play it because it's good and it wins, but I wish I could do something different. And God bless the people out there playing Control Warrior, just wrecking those aggro Shaman. Keep up the good work. Give me a different ladder environment to work with where I can play something different and feel like it's the correct choice. Because right now I feel like I should just always be playing aggro Shaman if I want to win, and that gets old after a few months.
Yeah,
so
a few
months. Like please, just queue up with this Control Warrior. It's a good deck. He will destroy the Shaman. Shaman just like doesn't really have bad matchups other than this deck. I think it's like your matchups range for okay to fantastic with that deck, and then there's this deck where it's like, oh, I do not want this.
No, I've had many Shamans just quit after turn 3. Like literally, they just concede after it once they run into this, and it's like, oh yeah, this is great. This is awesome. So it's been a lot of fun playing this, and let's see. Just for the folks that are listening at home, I just want to run it down real quick. It's your typical control Shaman. It's got the it does have the Alley Armorsmith, the Elise, just in case you do go into some kind of long game and just hope for the best when it comes to your legend minions. Grom, the double Gore Howl, like we said before, Sylvanas, and everything else that's pretty typical. Oh, the double Dirty Rat, dude. Dirty Rat. I freaking love Dirty Rat with the Brawl. It's just incredible to just screw with your opponent's deck. And you always, when you have 2 Dirty Rats, you get a good shot at getting something good at the end of games. And it's worked out really, really well.
Yeah, the first time I played against Dirty Rat Control Warrior, like the first one came out and whiff, just hit something that wasn't particularly relevant. Mm-hmm. And then like the thought never occurred to me that you could have 2 Dirty Rats in your deck.
Right?
Because it was the first time I played against a deck. Like every other deck is Reno that's playing Dirty Rats. So I was like, okay, well the Dirty Rat's gone. I think I was playing like Aviana Mali Druid or something. I was like, okay, Dirty Rat's gone. I've dodged it. I'm safe. I'm safe. We did this. And then like the second one comes out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm retarded. That is legal. You can put 2 of those in your deck. That's fine.
It's rough life. One last tip, I guess, for people that are going to end up playing this deck. When I play late at night, I have to say this deck isn't as good. For some reason, on the ladder, when I'm playing late at night, there's non-shamans and aggro warriors. There's just control decks, and this deck is not good against a lot of the control decks outside of maybe Reno Lock. So Jade Druid's you just quit. Like basically, if they're Jade Druid. At least my experience with it.
Sorry, just quickly about, you said it's not good against control decks. Like, how do you feel about Zalae as well? I guess like Reno Mage versus Control Warrior, because that's a matchup I've heard like a lot of arguments about as to like not only who's favored, but like who even has the impotence to like
favored. I haven't played a lot of it, but the gist of it is you go Brand Kazakis Manic Soulcaster, and then they're dead.
Yep.
Exactly. You have 2 Dirty Rats in your deck.
They can try and Dirty Rat that. I think if they Dirty Rat a part of that, they're still probably going to lose some fatigue to you. Okay. Now, that said, It really depends on the deck list, and I hate to say that, but I mean, like I haven't played that matchup a lot since Double Core Howl. I don't know if I've even played a single time against the Double Core Howl list with Reno Mage. And Reno Mage lists also vary quite a bit. A lot of them are like this cycle heavy Antonitis kind of thing, and the list I was playing was like very light on card draw and just intending to fatigue people. So I kind of had a natural advantage there. So really, it depends a lot on deck lists. But I definitely would want to be the Reno Mage and not the Control Warrior.
It's a fun matchup, though. It really is. Like deciding whether you want to go balls out for release. Because if you actually get Monkey early, you stomp that Mage. If you get just a card
Kazakus for 10 could crush a Monkey. If you Monkey, you don't have answers to a Kazakus 10 potion that does something.
It's true, but I mean, I'm talking early Monkey, like super early Monkey.
Well, that's super high roll. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think this match, I actually hate the matchup, and I think it's super lopsided in favor of Reno Mage, but that's kind of, again, came down to the list I was playing.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Sal? Like, what have you been hearing?
Well, so in my experience, I've just been winning the matchup from both sides, which is always frustrating because that teaches you absolutely nothing. So then I was talking to people, like most people I spoke to said pretty much what Zalae said, that like the impetus was on the Control Warrior to do something special, Dirty Rat out everything in the world because they're going to lose in fatigue. And then I heard VLPS talking about how he feels confident that his list with the double Dirty Rat, Gore Howl, etc., can consistently beat Reno Mage. And I don't know. I'd love to see one of these bets that seem to prove nothing being played out. Because right now what we've learned from these bets is that Freeze Mage beats Aggro Shaman, Rogue beats Pirate Warrior. And the Mage is 90% favored against Rogue or something.
It's like duh,
none
right?
of that is true.
It's like
none of that is true.
Right.
But yeah,
credit where credit's due. I want to just say that the Double Gore Howl Twitch chat says that was Navi who popularized that, not VLPS. So
Navi, okay,
Navi.
That's definitely really, really, really good. But yeah, I mean, I think I have a look back at my stats. I think it's pretty close to 50% too when I've been playing Mage. But I'm not playing Mages at the highest of levels, so it's a little bit different for me. But anyways, let's move on. Give this a try for all those of you watching and listening. It's definitely a great one for the meta right now. Another great one for the meta right now is one that Sottle brought up, which was Anyfin. I've climbed a little bit with Anyfin too at some points whenever I've had the Murloc quest. I just want to work that down with about 10-15 games or something. But yeah, why don't you talk about this deck, Sottle?
Yeah, I mean, so me playing this deck, I started playing it on Sunday or Monday, I think. Was just, again, I've been kind of frustrated with the Reno meta, and I was just kind of thinking is like, well, what's a good like survivability deck that can outlast pirates, is still good in control matchups, and then you only have to ask yourself so many of those questions until you come up with the heal for 20 equality consecrate deck, right? So I started playing Anyfin. It performed extremely well for me. My idea of building it is just to have like all the early game stability that I can have and all the sustain that I can have. So I've got double Forbidden Healing, I've got Wicker Flame in there, double Doomsayer, double Loot Hoarder, like basically all the early game that I can play, because my theory is that I'm just going to beat control matchups anyway. Mm-hmm. The one spanner in that works is Reno Mage, which is a really frustrating matchup to kind of work out. Like I think I could get there. It feels like one of those matchups where like it's going to be like general rules by the end of it, where there's just certain things that are correct and certain things that are wrong on every single turn throughout the game.
Right.
Kind of like how old Anyfin versus Control Warrior used to go, where it was like Control Warrior has to hold like Brawl Belcher, and then the Anyfin has to hold the True Silver to be able to deal with the Belcher after the Brawl comes out. Like all these rules that you have to stick with. Obviously, like Ice Block is just a big nightmare in that matchup and how you're supposed to deal with that. But yeah, apart from that, I like this deck list a lot. Like there's just so much sustain against the aggro, and then like there's just very few control decks that can compete with you in the long term.
Is Tyrion actually good? I gotta ask, because it seems it's like too slow against aggro in a metagame where people don't even live to Reno that often. Mm-hmm. And cards like Sap and Sylvanas and whatever exist.
Tyrion's performed fine for me. I like it's when I was looking at my results and like card usage and all that stuff, the tracker bot stuff, it was like bottom 3 cards that I like, one of the first 3 cards that I would cut alongside the the Hammer of Wrath and the second Forbidden Healing with the weakest cards, but it seems good enough that I wouldn't want to replace it with anything else. I know other people have had success with like a way faster list with like Blood Mage, Double Hammer of Wrath, all that stuff, right? I haven't really tried out that list extensively, but Tyrion's been performing fine for me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I again, like I've been playing this some too, and it definitely does really, really well. What's the worst matchup for this deck right now?
Anything with patches.
Yeah, well, yeah, but
no, I feel like I really want to be patches against this deck. I'm so happy.
I mean, like, okay,
it is
so
a bad
like,
matchup, but
it isn't great. But like, Bluegill Warrior hits Small Time Buccaneer, right? Like that, it gets you out. It gets you out, yeah, but it gets you out of jail at least. So you're taking 10 from that thing. If you hit Doomsayer early, you're in really good shape.
Yep.
I'm playing double Forbidden Healing, so the sustain is kind of insane. And I have Wicker Flame, which can generally like get me to the point where I start the game again on turn 4 with 27, 28 HP after they have to deal with it. Again, like I haven't played enough this season to be able to like say definitive things about matchups because I'm still like I've been weirdly playing on 2 servers as well. I'm like rank 4 on 2 servers right now for some reason. I don't know why I've done that, but I have. So yeah, my win rate against pirate decks is very high because I'm not playing against players because I'm playing, so I can't like definitively tell you anything about the
like Rogue in particular has to be a nightmare, right?
Rogue was going to be my answer. That matchup you just lose. Yes, if they are any kind of competent player, you have lost.
And I think Shaman and Warrior, I still want to be the patches deck.
I in theory, like Theorycraft World, I would probably agree with you, but I don't think it's much, honestly.
Okay. What about like and Reno Mage? That also seems like I'd probably want to be the Reno Mage. Reno
it depends.
Lock.
So
you can beat Reno Lock, you can beat Dragon Priest.
Yeah, you destroy Dragon Priest, you beat Reno Lock pretty comfortably. Control Warrior is fairly comfortable unless they get like
you can consistently beat them stealing and anything can happen. Because they have Dragon and Operative these days. They get a lot of shots.
I get it all the time. I get it when I play Priest. I get
That's true. That actually has never happened to me.
Really?
I rolling your way through that matchup, man.
Yeah, there you go.
I hold Operative for the longest time in that matchup on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I've considered it. Like, I've been in situations where Operative is consider there anything being in the deck or being in their hand. And at that point, it just comes down to kind of like the old-fashioned, like anything mirror, right? Where you can still kind of play around it, and your deck is still like better equipped to be playing the waiting game than theirs.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, let's talk about Zalae has a shaman here to talk about. Let me bring it up.
Wow, really.
I know, just like don't get too out of
shaman. The weird thing about this deck, which is the thing from below instead of Flame Wreath Faceless, right? I cut the big man, and that was a very. It's not something I like advocate in general. It was something unique to this tournament because when I was looking at my lineup, I was like, okay, so my line it was for a conquest tournament, which is where you get rewarded for bullying one deck. And my lineup had some pretty good natural advantages against Priest, Dragon Priest in particular. So I just wanted to kind of take that to the next level. So by cutting Flame Wreath Faceless for Thing from Below, I'm less vulnerable to Shatter of Death from Dragon Priest. And it makes me feel a little bit better about playing 2 Astral Drakes plus Doomhammer plus Eye of Blackpaw. That's like a lot of big stuff to be playing in the deck. And by not playing Flame Wreath Faceless, I can curve into those 5+ mana cards more often, so I'm not overloaded on those turns. And also, one of the bigger things about playing Thing from Below over Flame Wreath Faceless is just that it's an indicator card of what archetype I'm playing. So a lot of Shaman decks look very similar, whether they're aggro or mid-rangey. And when you see that Thing from Below come down, you know they're mid-range. And when you see that Flame Wreath Faceless come down, you know they are aggro. So I play my Thing from Below, and they're like, okay, he's mid-range. And then they stop protecting their life total as much, and they die to some Lava Burst stuff.
Mind games, man. Good stuff.
Now, there are indicator cards like Doomhammer and Deckhand that can throw that off. But apart from those 2 cards, I think a lot of the cards like could be in either, and the Thing from Below kind of tricks him into thinking I'm mid-range when I'm not. But and also the Priest thing. So those are kind of the reasons why I went with this list. And then I don't have the Finley in there, which, Sottle, I guess, also likes. I just feel like hero powering kind of suck. Well, obviously you don't play Finley in this list because you have Thing from Below. Like,
right.
It's not even close at that point.
How do you?
Yeah,
But
How is it in
I don't
the
like
mirror
Finley too
matchup?
much. How's Finley in the mirror matchup?
No,
or
I know.
this
How is
deck?
your deck in the mirror against the aggressive one?
You should be favored in the mirror match because you're a greedier deck. Like the aggro shaman mirrors are grindy value games, not races. And the reason is both players have flame tongue, and so both players are constantly trading to prevent the opponent from getting value out of a flame tongue. And so it's just who has resources after we trade a million resources. And the answer is I have resources because I have more big stuff in my deck than you. Neener.
I have a counter argument.
Okay.
Sometimes in that matchup, you just play a thing with 7 attack and 7 health on turn 4,
Oh.
and you win the game.
Yeah,
That does
that's
happen.
the thing. That's the thing. I think the big man gets killed a lot, especially
He
Yeah,
does.
it does.
you just put 2 cards into it and you're like, dang, that was a good card. He outvalued me there. I hope the rest of my draw outvalues the rest of his draw.
Okay. I buy it.
I mean, a lot of times too with the 7/7, people are mulliganing for their answer to the 7/7, and if you don't get value and you've invested all that and lose the 7/7, it's usually game over after that point. A lot of times, so yeah,
Do people mulligan for answers to 7/7s? I feel like if you're going to do
so.
that, you
I do.
I do
Really?
for sure.
Polymorph
Yeah,
up.
no question.
Yeah.
Okay, like sure, polymorph. Polymorph is understandable because you're not
Death?
playing a real deck. You're playing Reno Mage. So you don't have good cards to mulligan for. So I can understand that. But like, you keep Shadow Word Death in Priest.
You keep Blast Crystal.
Yeah,
you keep,
yeah, okay,
you,
yeah.
you keep all those
Yeah,
things,
sure.
right? Yeah.
All right, yeah, that's fine.
And it's a huge investment when you play it. It's kind of like feels like Van Cleef sometimes. For Rogue, it's you can still win because Shamans probably still have 2 cards, or they still have some cards after that play, but it swings if you can remove it easily. Cool, yeah, I definitely like this. I remember making the similar decision whenever I was building. Was it the Evolved deck? It was one of my mid-range Shamans. I made the similar decision, and I was very happy with using things from below instead. It was.
I think this deck list is actually wrong. Like, there's supposed to be a Thalamus instead of the second Azure Drake.
Oh, okay. You gave it to me,
I messed
dude.
up. My bad. Yeah, no, that's my fault.
Okay, just making sure. It's not definitely one of the decks I built myself in the client and screenshotted. Okay, so next one you got is a Dragon Warrior.
No, yeah, this one's weirder, right? Netherspite Historian is the card that everyone disagrees with, and I hear where they're coming from. So one thing people have said to me is this is an aggro deck, and that's like an anti-tempo card. And all I can say to that is, no, it's not an aggro deck. You're wrong. This is a mid-range deck. This is clearly not an aggro deck. I have Draconid Crusher in there. I have Blackwing Corruptor. I have Azure Drake. That's not aggro. There's no Mortal Strike. There's no Leroy. This is mid-range. So you can play value cards in this deck. The real argument against Netherspite Historian is just that it's a little bit underpowered. It discovers class cards a lot, and there's no good class warrior dragon card. There's no Draconid Operative here. There's no whatever that Paladin 5/5 thing's called. So it's just a little bit underpowered. And it is kind of like the 2 worst cards in the deck, the Netherspite Historian, but you have to fill those slots somehow. And my experience with this Dragon Warrior style deck is just that it's very powerful when things are working and pretty inconsistent in terms of actually getting those things to be working. And you lose a lot of games where you just have some turn around 3, 4, 5 that you just don't have cards to play, and you like armor up and that does nothing, or you float mana and it's just a complete disaster, and the deck has no recovery tools whatsoever. There's no Maelstrom Portal, there's no Lightning Storm, there's no Brawl. If you fall behind, you're dead. It's not going to work out for you. So you have to be consistently doing your stuff with your mana all the time. And that's part of why I'm not playing Finley. Just like hero powering feels too weak. So the Netherspite Historian just adds some consistency to the deck, certainly at a cost of power level, but you could play it. It's a 2-mana 1/3 that's better than a hero power, and it puts a dragon in your hand, which lets you play the other dragons and still have dragons the top deck later like activated, like the Blackwing Corruptor, the Alex Giles' Champion, whatever. And a key comparison to make is to the Curator versions of the deck, which I initially supported, but then I think Camelin came up with some of this kind of deck and popularized it a bit. And after I tried it out, I was like, yeah, you know what? I do like Upgrade better than I like Blooddigger. I think those are competing for the same card slot. I feel like Upgrade does a similar thing of like that 1 extra damage to kill something, while I'd rather have like a bigger weapon than I would have a 2/2 in play. And then there's the biggest thing is the Bloodsail Cultist, the 3-mana 3/4. I think that card's much better than Fierce Monkey, and that's a chief reason why I don't support the Curator versions. because the upside when you hit that upgrade on your weapon is just absurd and broken, and it happens pretty often against like non-patches decks. Like patches decks will have weapons and they'll have patches, and so they clear your early pirates, and so you don't get the upgrade off very often. But against like Reno decks, a lot of times some 1/1's going to stick around. You can get an upgrade off, and it just crushes them. It's like infinitely better than the Fierce Monkey. And then even outside of those cases, there's a fair amount of games where you don't hit the turn 1 pirate. You don't have the Nazaw's First Mate. You don't have the Buccaneer. And your cultist pulls out patches, which a Fierce Monkey does not. So you're getting 4/5 of stats on turn 3 instead of 3/4. And that's, again, huge difference. Really a lot better than Fierce Monkey in those cases. So I think there's enough cases where the cultist is much better than the monkey. The taunt's kind of, don't really care that much. I think the cultist is much better, and that's why I don't go with the curator versions. You can only play so many 3-drops, and I think the cultist is a better 3-drop.
Makes sense.
So that's my spiel about this deck.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. Actually, you're talking about the Camlan list. I played the Camlan list for the best part of last month. I was like top, like between 50 and 200 on NA for most of the month, just playing that deck, just for a few games a day here and there. So I'm trying to like work out the exact differences. You've dropped Finley and something else for 2 Netherspite Historians. What's the something else? I can't even. I struggle to see what it is.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
But like, yeah, the Finley seems fine if you're giving yourself. I don't know. Even if you just pick up a couple of 4-mana dragons.
That's my argument with Finley. I just don't want to do it. I want to play cards. That's why the Historian's there.
So even if you pick up like 2 4-mana cards.
Do you have a Ravaging Ghoul? Is that it?
1 Ravaging Ghoul. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So my issue with Ravaging Ghoul is just that like I have stuff in play and I don't want to damage my own stuff.
No, I buy that. I found that as well and was like considering cutting it, but last month was like maybe even more pirate heavy than it was this month because there was no Reno Mage in the format really. So the Ravaging Ghoul felt a lot better. But yeah, I like this idea. I might try it honestly with the Netherspites. It seems like a cool idea.
The Historians look stupid, like everyone says that, and I hear you and I get it. It's just I won 2 tournaments in a row playing this thing. It was 16 matches in a row. It's like, so I don't know.
It gives you just a little bit more value at the end. You know, like you run out of cards sometimes, like with this deck.
What kind of thing do you find yourself taking most often? Twilight Guardian style thing?
Well, if you take Twilight Guardian, you're ecstatic. A lot of times I take some garbage 9-drop and you might not get to play it, but it's enabling things and you might get to play it, in which case it is a huge deal that you have it.
Well, isn't Operative the gold mine if you get it?
Dragon Operative is a priest card. We can't
sorry. Yeah. I'm so used to playing Dragon Priest. I'm so used to playing Dragon Priest. My bad, guys. Yeah,
they'd be like, that's just great.
Yeah, exactly. My bad.
No, but like, you get garbage in Warrior.
Let's say like Thought Experiment, you have like 3/5 buff guy, whatever his name is, the 3/5 +1/+1 guy, like up against 9 mana things. Are you taking a 9 mana thing, or are you taking
looking at your hand? You're looking at the context of the game.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of Discover, right? You don't have to pick in advance. You get to figure it out on the spot based on what's going on.
Problem solve with it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool. Yeah, good stuff. Dragon Warrior seems to always be good, man. To some extent, at least. Right? Okay, do we have any more decks here? Oh, I've got one more that I thought was fun that I was watching Jackie play the other day and figured we gotta have one fun deck. We gotta have one fun deck every week, and this one is a rogue giant, just gang up type of deck, and he wasn't having obviously a ton of success with it, but there are definitely some elements to it that just remind you of the whole Echo Medivh, just the whole Echo Mage way back when with Molten Giants and everything. And I don't know, I think it's really, really cool. The early game is where the huge weakness is, obviously, against pirate decks and whatnot. But definitely worth talking about. It's got the double backstabs, the coins, the preps, the Blood Mage, Abyss, Gang Ups, Shiv, Edwin, Fans, Shadow Strikes, Agents, Pillagers, Drakes. It's got the Burgly Bully too, 2 of them, and Actioneer, and then the 2 Arcane Giants. And the whole point is just to sort of survive the beginning, use as many spells as you can use to get the discount on the Arcane Giant, and then gang up the Giants, and then you can put the rest of the puzzle together there. You just throw down a bunch of 0 mana Giants right towards the end.
Well, it's got Edwin Van Cleef and some coins in it, so it will win at least some games of Hearthstone. I can tell you that.
Well, yeah, exactly.
No, it's a
turn 4,
control
turn
across
5.
your deck,
Yeah.
right? This is like a very anti-control deck. Like, how does control beat you when you take a Miracle Rogue, and then like the way you beat a Miracle Rogue is control is you survive their threats and they kind of just like lose in fatigue. But this deck has an extra like 8/8s. So good luck running them out of threats, right? There's 2 gang ups, that's 6 8/8s, and 2 Arcane Giants makes 8. So that's a lot of things. And like the 2 extra Burglary Bullies, like just the body of that needs to be respected. It's a thing.
Burglary
That card
Bully
is
is
sweet, by the way.
It's a cool card. I mean, honestly,
It's a card that I picked to be good because
It's a-
I didn't fully understand how ubiquitous Buccaneer plus Patches was going to be. Like, I knew the cards were broken strong, but I didn't realize how many decks could play them. And that just makes it so that you just Burglary Bully is way too slow for almost any deck, certainly a rogue deck, right?
Well, actually, I think Burglary Bully, that's definitely one of the major reasons. But also, I think the fact that Azure Drake exists is one of the reasons that Burglary Bully is not even played. If Azure Drake was removed, a lot more decks would play Burglary Bully just even for that ramp aspect to it. Just for going to turn 7. That'd be great. But yeah, I like the card, and it's definitely interesting in this one too, being able to get coin. It's not that easy to remove a 4/6.
It really isn't. No.
Yeah.
This is like exactly the kind of card I was talking about right at the start when I was saying like just make cards with more complex potential that makes the game harder to solve. Like this is a cool card that could potentially let you build a deck that can do insane things. And we see like Rage running it in his Reno Mage, for example, just to like Antonidas the crap out of people. Like if there were just like way more effects like this in the game. Like I'm not talking like 2 or 3 more cards like this. I'm talking like 20 or 30 more cards.
20 cards like this? Holy crap.
Yeah, dude, why not? Like
it's a cool card. I like it.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Like every card that just has stats slapped on it and they said go, just like get rid of that fucking card and just replace it with something interesting. Like come on, let's go.
No, I mean Azure Drake. Gosh, right now so I do this game show, Streamer Showdown, right? And last time we did it, I think we did it a week ago, I believe. And I introduced this new segment where we show like one card at a time, and then the contestants have to guess what deck it is, right? And I'm trying to confuse them by showing them obviously some cards that are in multiple decks and whatnot. And dude, Azure Drake was like in every single one of them because you don't want to show a class card, right? And you can only show neutral cards just in the very beginning, just to keep it, a lot of decks as possibilities. And it's just like Azure Drake, Blood Mage Thalamus, and it was just like the same card. So I was like, wow, this made it even more eye opening to me, just how common these cards are in every single deck.
I want to say I love Azure Drake, and I hope they don't change it. I know there's been some talk about that guy getting the axe. I feel like it's fair and balanced and interesting and fun. Ruin something else. Go after the 2-drops. Those are the criminals in Hearthstone. The Fiery War Axe, the Wild Growth, that stuff's evil.
Fair enough. Okay, well, let's move on to Mekkatroque's workshop, where we talk about some custom cards, and we have some folks that some patrons and some viewers that sent in some cards. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to our patrons that support the show. Those of you that don't know, Valuetown is 100% supported by the Patreon, and you can go and support the show at patreon.com/Valuetown if you do enjoy the show and want to help in that way. That'd be amazing. But we do have a lot of patrons I do want to give a quick shout out to. Not all of them, of course, they kind of take turns, but of course our 2 huge legendary producers, Mike T and Louis G. Big shout out to them as always. And then a few others: Raydan, Bobby D, Davin P, Havoc, Enoch K, Julius K, Jacob P, Dan S, Albert, Ed H, and Eugene L. Thank you so much for, again, continuing to support the show. Unfortunately, we're just under the Smilestone, so we're not going to be able to do Smilestone this week. So, if you guys want to see Smilestone, you got to, just consider contributing a little bit more to the Patreon. I think we're like $5 below it, so it doesn't take too much, guys. Also, want to big a shout out to the folks on iTunes that have been leaving some 5-star reviews and some nice words for us. We actually had 4 people leave it this past week, which is awesome. Flea BB, Bengals fan, Dr. Oh no, actually, I keep saying doctor. It's actually Dream Evil, but Dream Veil using numbers and stuff. And Yo Mama 7392738. Thanks for leaving that. And those of you that also do listen on iTunes, want to help the show, want to help folks find Valuetown when searching for Hearthstone podcasts, go ahead and leave a 5-star review there. It's really, really nice. Really, really easy to do, and it helps out the show greatly.